Yes, it's Feedback Friday number 3. Thank you guys so much for sending in all those nice comments last week. I've had a really good week because every time you guys send me one of those comments, it just totally makes my day, and I've gotten so many nice comments. So thank you so much for that. That really, I had a great week. It was like I was on a constant high. Just awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. Here's what this is. Feedback Friday is a feature I'm doing every Friday on my channel, Holistic Songwriting, on Facebook, facebook.com/Holistic Songwriting. I'm posting a photo that says Feedback Friday, and what you have to do is just post a song below with like a little link, and I will listen to it a couple of times and then give you feedback the next day, which is Saturday, coincidentally, which is today. What I'm doing is really I'm just going through the songs a couple of times, listening to what peeks out to me, what stands out to me, and I write down what I notice. So the good and bad, both, but this comes down to is it's all my opinion, of course. It is an opinion that's based on 10 years of experience, writing for some of the biggest brands in the world, blah, 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 blah. But it is just my opinion, so whatever I say, you have your own opinion, and, do with my opinion whatever you want. Anyways, please watch this video until the very end because I have something to say that goes for all of you that have contributed this week, except maybe one of you guys. But so please watch the ending as well. The times of the different songs and of my different feedback sessions are in the description. And I think that's pretty much all I had to say. So let's start with song number 1, which is Ihor's Marching to the Graveyard. Ihor, great to have you back. So happy that you're back. Last week's song was just amazing. And I'm really happy to have you back this week again. And it's a great song again. I mean, I can definitely hear that last week's song wasn't just a lucky streak. Lucky, just to have, it wasn't just luck. Well, you know what I mean. But that, you have a solid foundation in harmony and that you know what you're doing, which is really nice to hear because, again, your harmony is great. Your lyrical storytelling works, and again, it's not an easy setting for doing that because you have so few instruments, and that makes lyrical storytelling really difficult. You played, again, a great solo. I'm not sure if you played it, but it's definitely a really cool solo. You had a really great guitar sound there, and again, you have a great sense of melody. All right, here's my couple of things that I would suggest you maybe change or consider to change. First of all is wait with the brass till a little bit later in the song. Right now you're starting with the brass really, really early. I think right in the first verse, if I'm not mistaken. Might be wrong, but it starts off really, really early. Why not wait with that brass until a little bit later in the song, maybe second verse or even, bridge or last chorus. You don't need it that early, and it would help your song to build a little bit more. Secondly, your trumpets, or well, your entire brass section actually sounds very MIDI, sounds very, very programmed, which is not really a problem if you're writing hip hop because people are used to that. But in jazz, well, people are really used to those realistic trumpet or brass sounds. I think it's actually trombones. I'm not sure why I'm saying trumpets all the time. But yeah, I mean, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, or well, a BB gun to a gunfight. It sounds like plastic, and that's a bad thing. You really don't want that in a jazz setting. I personally would rather take it out and have no trumpets or trumpets. There it is again, and have no brass instead of having cheap plastic sort of trumpets. If you catch my drift. So either take it out or find someone who can record it for you really quick and put that in. And not really quick. I mean, who does a proper job and does it really well, of course. Then the next thing, and this is probably my biggest issue with your song in this case, which I didn't have last week, but this is for this song. This goes is that your mix is a little bit all over the place. So it's very dynamic. There's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff competing for my attention, and that doesn't really help me if I'm trying to figure out what to listen to. So what I'm suggesting is, and I think the biggest culprit here is your drums. Your drums are there's just too much going on there, and it just should be simpler. So here's a little crash course in how to write for drums in jazz. First of all, the first thing that you need to know, you have the time in the right hand. So you can either have that on the hi-hat, which is the typical, or just or the not so typical. The one that we hear all the time is either the we hear that all the time, or what we hear all the time is ride. The same thing on the right. Like ting 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 ting. So that's the right hand. The left hand we're going to get to in just a second. um, the left foot does the hi-hat clasp, typically on 2 and 4. So, ding, da, ding, da, ding, da, ding. Or it can also do all 4s. So, in which case usually the 2 and 4 are a little bit louder than the 1 and the 3. And the left hand fills in the snares, as you know, in any groove, but in this case, in drum writing, it just most of the time just plays ghost notes. Sometimes it might play a full-on stroke for an accent, but that doesn't happen very often in jazz. So most of the time, it just adds some ghost notes, meaning you take a note in your MIDI program and just pull it down all the way until, I don't know, to a velocity of maybe 15 or 20. So it's really soft. It's just more for the feeling of it. Not, you don't really need to hear it. It's more that you feel it, right? So and then you would really go sort of against that time in the right hand. So it basically fills in. Most of the time, it just fills in the offbeats. So it'll be like that sort of thing. That's sort of what the snare does. And I sang it really loudly now, but a typical drummer might play that a lot softer. Yeah, because one of the biggest issues I had with the drum part were some of your snare hits sounded really random to me. It was like, whoa, okay, where did that come from? And it doesn't come back. It's not turning into a backbeat or something like that. It's just there was a snare there all of a sudden. And I was like, well, there's no accent. There's just no reason for it to be there. So leave it out and have all those ghost notes. And if you have an accent, then go for a full stroke. Exactly. The right and quarter notes. I said that already. So, yeah, one more thing. Last thing I wanted to say before I move on to the next song is I had a feeling in your song that there was often a little bit too much happening at the same time. And I mean especially rhythmically. So we already talked about the drum set. If you make that simpler, straighter, then that's already going to improve your song a lot. But one more thing I noticed was your brass was playing some melodic lines, and they were just going against the melody. That just didn't work. Because the melody is the prominent thing that we're supposed to listen to, right? That's the one that's taken up center stage. And if you use brass, then that should play pads, sort of a pad sound, play chords, usually long notes. You don't really want to play two melodies over next to each other, because that's just competing for your listener's attention. That's something you generally don't want to do. And that's something I call trading space, you can only have one thing center stage, and that's usually your singer. And the only time when you get let another instrument center stage is when the singer goes backstage for a little while, and then you have a drum solo, or then you have a brass melody or something like that. But typically, the voice is center stage, and everything else just needs to stay in the background. And if you let one of your background instruments play a melody, well, that's going to compete for that attention in center stage. So that's not a good thing to do. So that's something I would either take out or make simpler. Use chords, sort of a pad thing. But if you use chords, make sure that you, if you're going to program them, maybe you're going to find better samples. If you're going to program your brass, then make sure they have sort of sing those lines, because they have to breathe, right? It's an instrument that relies on breath. It's not like guitar where you can play forever and never have to stop. But on brass, you have to, it's all lungs. So make sure you sing every single line, and to put in little rests where they could theoretically catch a breath. That's because that's one of the biggest tells for programmed brass. All right, that was your song. Let's move on to Frink's Mond. Danke für den tollen Beitrag. That was German right there, because I am actually German, in case you didn't know. That was just our weird U-boat codes for our next attack word. I don't know. All right, let's see. Okay, first of all, Frink, you guys, I really loved your song. You guys have great emotion. That's probably my biggest plus point for you guys. Your performance and your emotions are just awesome. Like, I can see it in your faces, and that's awesome. That's just so much fun to watch and to listen to. And you guys are absolutely in it. You're not just playing a song, but you're getting into the song, which is something I love to see in musicians. And when I watched your video, I was like, yes, these guys are musicians, you know, and that's a feeling I love, when I get the feeling of these guys are not just playing a song, but these guys are artists. That's the kind of feeling that I want when I listen to a band. You had some solid dynamic playing from start to finish. It was just, the dynamics were really great, and you have like all these little subtleties where you get louder and then you get softer again, and sort of play with that tension throughout the entire song. I really like that. You have some really nice guitar parts there, some really nice fingerstyle sort of guitar parts, really nice. I really like the vocals as well. So on all those fronts, way to go. I really like the lyrics, even though they are a little bit repetitive thematically, like it's always the same idea that gets repeated, which is not a problem so much, but as we're going to see a little bit later, since your lyrical storytelling could use a little bit of improvement, I think if you added some direction to the lyrics, that might actually help. That's another form of lyrical storytelling, is adding direction to your lyrics. But anyways, and I really liked your harmony as well. So these are all my plus points. Let's talk about things that I think could be improved in your song. And don't get me wrong, I really loved your song, and I really loved, as I said, I loved your performance. But as heartfelt as it looks, the problem is we got to make sure as songwriters that our songs also translate to listeners who listen to your songs on the crappiest tiny little shitty speaker on their, you know, phones or whatever. And that's where really lyrical storytelling comes in, I think. And in your song, the lyrical storytelling is pretty good, but it doesn't always work. And I think your biggest, the one thing where I think you can get the most mileage out of right now, the one thing you could change that would really transform your song into something with a lot better lyrical storytelling, is your sort of groove. And right now you're playing from start to finish pretty much, except if you don't look at the intro, you're playing 16th notes. It's always gada-dada, 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 you know? So it's always those 16th notes. And so the whole song is in that same kind of groove and that same kind of feel. And I personally think, especially if you, and don't get me wrong, writing for two guitars and vocals is, lyrical storytelling-wise, one of the hardest things you can do. It is extremely hard to tell a story on just two guitars and with a vocal. It's one of the hardest things you can do. Don't get me wrong. Like, seriously, I've done it many times, and it's really, really hard, and it takes me way longer than arranging a big rock band track, you know. But because you're staying in that 16th note groove and that 16th subdivision, all the sections don't really get their own, like the different sections, chorus, verse, and bridge, don't really get their own feel, get their own moment, it feels like. It all feels kind of like the same thing, energy-wise, you know? And I know from your comment below your video that you have seen my videos on that, on lyrical storytelling. That's probably one of my biggest issues here, is that the subdivision is always the same, which kind of makes everything the same energy. So, and the problem with that is that the chorus doesn't really stand out that way. And it doesn't have to be higher in energy than the verse. I think you were going for exactly the opposite, to have the chorus go lower in energy, which is totally fine. But at the moment, it's the jump from verse to chorus is just this. It's almost nothing. And what I want to see is to have that chorus go really low, to be really low energy. So a couple of things that you could do is, for example, you could only use one guitar for your chorus. That would really dramatically alter your energy downwards. You could, and this is probably the thing that I would do, is you could play the chorus in quarter notes, so go for a sub-4 division. You could also try and play the chorus an octave higher. That's also something I would try, and maybe experiment with going an octave higher and go into a sub-4 feel. Sub-4 means a subdivision of quarter notes. So these three things, these are probably some of the things that I would experiment with and see what fits the best. I like the idea of doing a first chorus without the vocals, but the one problem that I have with that is, and I think it's going to get better if the choruses are lower in energy. The one problem I have with that is that has that verse feel going on for a really long time, because basically now you have a verse, a little interlude, and then another really long verse. So the first half of the song is just verses, and since lyrically you're not really bringing anything new to the table, it's basically the same idea stated over and over and over, which is not technically a bad thing because I like your lyrics. It kind of has a very static feel to it, if you know what I mean. So you could, for example, shorten the second verse. You could play a little bit more with your arrangement, like maybe have just one instrument playing, or not playing a sub 16 setting, but maybe also use strummed chords and just letting them be, just to sort of mix it up, keep your verses a little bit more interesting, because right now your first half of your song feels a little bit too similar for my taste. And again, it's always an option to take stuff out. Build. You don't have to have both guitars from the very start of your song. It might be a really cool effect to wait until the very first chorus and then have your second guitar come in. Something like that. And maybe not in this song because you want your chorus to be lower in energy, of course, but in general, that's something I always think of when I'm arranging for two guitars and vocals. Yes, hit more high notes the longer you go. Yeah, the later in the song you go, you want to hit a couple more high notes. Because again, if you add more high notes, that gives it that feel of we're going somewhere, And right now, every single chorus is the same range, right? So, I mean, you're adding that second voice, which is nice, but I think it's too subtle. I think you could also add some higher notes in the main vocal, and possibly even in the verses as well, not just in the chorus, but just to sort of give it that more of a direction, to sort of start with a low range, in the chorus go up a little bit, in the second verse go down again, and then you sort of open up that range more and more until the end of the song, and that gives it that direction, gives it that lyrical storytelling that I'm talking about. You could also try a call and response in the chorus, which was the lyrics again for the chorus? Was it Bring mich hoch zum Mond? Was it that? Bring mich hoch zum Mond, bring mich hoch zum Mond. Something like that. Bring mich hoch zum Mond, bring mich hoch zum Mond. Get a sort of call and response thing going. Just an idea. I also like the second voice that you're doing, but it just leaves a lot of space right now, which is nice on one side, but maybe you can experiment a little bit. Maybe just for the last chorus you do like a call and response thing, possibly even with the audience if you're doing it live. I don't know. Just a couple of ideas. If you want more on lyrical storytelling, you may have already seen the videos. I think you saw them based on your comment. I also wrote a book about it called The Addiction Formula, which you can get on Amazon. I'm going to put the link in the description, which is for people like you guys. And apart from maybe the production chapter in here, there is, I think everything else really still applies to you guys. And so I recommend it. I think it's something that would help you guys a lot if you want to improve your lyrical storytelling. All right, let's move on to MartiMedia. Again, dude, good to have you back, even though this is your first real contribution. Last week was just more of a feature. So, really good to have you back. And let's look at your song. First of all, I noticed you have really nice lyrics. I like your idea. And it's something that I haven't heard so many times. Like, it's something that feels, well, fresh is maybe the wrong word, because it's about the elderly still being loved, but you know what I mean. It's like thematically, it's still pretty fresh. We have, yeah, it's a nice vocal sound. You have a really cool solo. There's so many solos. You guys are playing so many solos. I haven't heard that many solos in years. It's crazy. Listen to the radio. Do you hear solos? Like, solos are out. Like, the 90s had solos, but we're in the 2010s now, and I haven't heard a solo in years, so like I'm okay with like one solo per album or something like that, but I hear a lot of solos from you guys, which is, I mean, it's musically it's alright, but just if you're looking at our times, it's just something that I haven't heard in a long time, so I'm just really surprised that I hear so many solos. I like your low energy chorus after the bridge. That's really nice. And yeah, cool. Yeah, good. Again, the nice lyrics. Yes, really cool. All right, let's talk about, again, lyrical storytelling. yeah, hold back a little longer. I also think if you haven't seen the video series, I suggest you watch that or maybe get the book. But definitely watch the video series that I have on my channel on how to write an addicting song, because I think that goes for you as well. But let's talk about drums, because those were a little bit problematic with you as well. You understand clearly how groove writing works, like it works as a groove, but it's not really groovy yet. So here's a couple of tips to make your drums sound a little bit groovier. First of all, your ghost notes are too loud. Make them softer. The dynamics between full standard strokes and ghost notes should be really noticeable. Like your ghost notes should be felt, not heard. Then we have take out some of the kicks. Yeah, your kick drum patterns were a little bit too complicated. My suggestion would be to have the kick on just the 1 and the 3 and. I think that would make things a lot simpler, straighter, would clean up your arrangement. I think that would be a good thing to do. Especially, I think it was in the chorus, or was it in the verse? I know it was in the verse. Yeah, in the verse, that was probably the part where I would really simplify the kick drum. You know, make it simpler and more powerful. Make your hi-hat simpler. I don't know exactly what I meant by that. I think you were playing some relative, like you added in some 16th notes or something like that. Like it wasn't just da 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 da. You know, I personally thought it didn't really need those added in notes, so I would just personally go just for an 8th note, sort of really simple pattern. But I'm not exactly sure what I meant by that. I'm sorry, I kind of forgot about that. The drum sound is kind of weak against the guitar, and this is more of a production thing, but that's something I really noticed early on, is your drums sound kind of warm and soft, and your guitars have a lot of attack, sound very high, like a lot of high mids, very attacky, you know? So what I suggest is go back to your drum MIDI file and amp up the velocities so they get a little bit more attack, so they get a little bit more, of that high mid that you need in order to compete with the guitars. Because right now the guitars are more aggressive than your drums, and I think it should be the other way around. A couple more tips. Have the bass play long legato notes in your chorus. So, because right now you're playing just short staccato sort of 8th notes in your chorus, and I'm not quite sure what it's exactly playing anymore, but I'll have it play a couple more long notes that sort of distinguishes it from your verses, which again is lyrical storytelling, and that's a nice thing, and would make the chorus stand out more. And for you, it also the same goes as for the guys from Frink. It's all sub 16 right now, and maybe you could go for a sub 8 in the chorus. I think that would give it a little bit more power, which I think would work well in a song. And again, sub 16 means a 16th note subdivision, sub 8 means an 8th note subdivision. Okay, your transition to your chorus. Oh God, I can't remember this part. I'm so sorry, dude. I would have to hear it again really quickly. Let me just open that real quick, because I really can't remember this section of your song. But it's the "You Were All My Dreams" part. I'm very sorry, but I went through 6 songs so quickly. Where is it? Few more comments. Well, if I were any serious about this, I would totally edit this out, wouldn't I? Alright, here it is, Dreams. Let me see. Because I had an issue here with making that hit a little bit clearer, making that accent a little clearer. You were all my dreams. You were all my dreams. Exactly. That part. It's cool. You were all my dreams. And then just have that. You were all my dreams. You know, something like that. Because right now you're just playing, you were all my dreams, and then you keep going with the groove. Why don't you make it more of a moment, and you were all my dreams, tap, 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 like clasp, sort of. You were all my dreams, tap, 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 ka-ka, ka-ka-ka-goom, and then your chorus comes in with a lot more power, you know? And your chorus is going to pop more, and it's going to make the whole thing a little bit more dynamic. I like your lyrics to your chorus. I think they're really, really nice, but the lines don't really flow well enough. Um, they're your chorus sounds more like another verse, unfortunately. Like, if I look at the lyrics, I can tell, I would say this is a verse, not a chorus. Choruses usually are shorter, simpler, um, and have way less words and revolve just around one idea. And yours is going through a lot of very different things. Well, I mean, it's the same subject, but it's, well, I think you know what I mean, but there's too much happening in your chorus. You know, make it straighter, simpler, and groovier, and take out your filler words. So instead of what you have right now, I think it would be enough to have the 4 lines: too colorful to be gray, made their inner lovers play, endless ballad to each other, living, breathing, didn't bother, chasing their dreams. That would be enough. You know, you have some words that you don't really need. And if you have a groove that needs those additional words, well, then you can use them. But what I just read to you, that's what I would start with. On your intro, add some ad-libs, something I would do personally. Maybe you watched last week's video when I talked about that technique that I learned from this Katy Perry song, Dark Horse, where every single section of the song has vocals on it in some shape or form. And that's something that just adds a lot of immediacy and excitement to your songs. So something I recommend to you as well. If you have the time to go over it again, add some ad-libs to your intro. I think that's going to really do you some good. And then possibly add second voices. Definitely add second voices to your pre-chorus, because it really has this very dreamy sort of feel, and second voices always work well to create a very dreamy feel. And if you simplify it, you can also do the same thing for your chorus, just to make the chorus stand out with a second voice. In the bridge, again, since you're still in that sub-16 pattern all the time, how about in your bridge you change the guitar part to just whole notes, to just like strum and keep it there. I think that would simplify it and again make your last chorus pop even more. That's all I have to say for you, and let's move on to the next song, which is Polystyrene's Smile, which is a really cool song, and I like it so much because it's really unusual, and I don't hear this kind of music. I'm not sure if I've really ever heard it before. It reminds me a lot of Simon & Garfunkel, but it's got something that I really haven't heard before, which is something that I really, really dig. So it's always cool to hear new sort of stuff out there. I'm not sure if it's new, but it's like taking something old and making it interesting again. Like that's how I experience it. You have really nice melodies that all work. You have great simple parts, which is awesome. Like from all the submissions this week, from all the entries this week, your song has the simplest parts, and they're straight and they work. That's what I like about your song a lot. Like, you're not fiddling around too much on every single part, which also leads to a couple of small problems, but in general, you're way better off than everyone else this week because you're writing simple stuff. And if you just, learn a couple of tweaks, learn to make a couple of tweaks to some of your instruments, I think that's going to help you like a great big deal. I love your chorus. It's just lovely, and I like your lyrics. So these are pretty much the most important things to me. So yeah, I mean, it really works to me. It's a really nice little song, but there are some problems with it. And even though I like it, I still have some suggestions for you to make. And again, it's a lot of small things. And again, I say this every week, but it's so true. The difference between good songwriting and great songwriting is not one thing. It's always maybe 100 little things that you do just a tiny bit better, and that makes the whole song a lot better. So let's start with your biggest problem, which I think is your mix. Specifically, your drums don't punch enough. So give it a bit more aggression. Maybe use experiment a little bit with a compressor or some other reverbs. Increase the pre-delay a little bit or something like that. I don't really have it. I can't really think of it right now what it sounds like, but try to give your drums a little bit more punch, because I think your song relies on that. Your song needs a drum set that has a little bit of punch. One thing I really noticed was your guitar is often out of tune, so while you're recording, retune your guitar often. And it may be that you have just a guitar that isn't really, like the intonation isn't perfect, which sucks, because I've had guitars like that, where it is in tune, but then you play high up on the fretboard, and then it sounds like shit again. So sometimes what I'll have to do is use a capodaster and then retune the guitar, and that usually makes it better. You had some timing issues in the guitar and the verses, which sucks. Last week I gave some tips to someone on working on timing, which I hear a lot of you have problems with timing. That's not something I really want to talk about, because I'm really more coming from the songwriting perspective than from a musician's perspective, than from a performer's perspective. But timing really is something that you need to work on, and that you need to be able to identify when it's not tight, when it's not together. So, and timing is really so important. You know, I had a friend who got really depressed because he didn't have great timing. He really got depressed. You know, he actually he threw himself behind a train, which is a really dumb joke. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, so we have that one line: "See that face a many a mile, and I know I travel," which is, you know, the first lines of your chorus, of those 2 blocks in your chorus. I really like your chorus, but here I think you could improve the melody here by taking the backing vocals, pulling them down an octave, and making that your main vocal for this line, and then to write a new backing vocal. Because I think your main resonant, like the lower part, that is your melody right now, isn't as good as what you have in your top voice. So again, the top voice, put that an octave down, just for those 2 lines. "See that face a many a mile," and the other one is "I know I travel," just that part of that line. Take down the top melody and write a new backing vocal. And then everything else in the chorus is great. "Can't get over," etc. Everything else after that is just great. Let your drums play the kick in the chorus. Right now the drums are playing the same old beat throughout the entire song, and that's alright. Like, I'm all for writing simple drum parts, but it shouldn't sound like the drums were just a loop, because that sucks. So my suggestion is put a kick drum on the 3 and take out the open hi-hat there. Because right now you have a guitar coming in on 4 and 1, I think, in your chorus, like just playing chords, and accent those with your drums. Make sure that the drums and the guitar sort of lock together here. And it's always nice to have interplay between the different instruments. I mean, it's called the rhythm section for a reason, right? They all build the rhythm section together. Like, they all have usually just 1 or 2 rhythms. And this is a great moment to do that, to have an accent together. So I suggest you try out that. Put a kick drum on the 3 and take out the open hi-hat there, to sort of, you know, make the rhythm section a little bit tighter there, to work together more. Your ending is very exciting. You know, you have a very, like, da-da-da-da, and it's over. It's kind of ending. Which is, it's a nice ending in itself, but I don't think the song asks for it, because the song is kind of has more of a relaxed kind of, as I said, Simon & Garfunkel-esque kind of feel to it, and your ending is more like Foo Fighters. You know, it's like, it's just, it doesn't really fit that style in my opinion. So maybe find a different ending, or make your whole song a little bit more tense, add a little bit more tension to the rest of your song. And I personally like your song. I think you should leave it like that. Just, you know, if you have some hits here and there, that would be nice in your drums. But leave it pretty much as it is. Just make the ending a little bit smoother. Don't make it so, whoa, what the fuck was that? You could also add, in your pre-choruses, you could add half open hi-hats. So, because right now your hi-hats are closed all the time. And I like the closed hi-hats in the chorus, which is something I don't say a lot. But I like the closed hi-hats in your chorus. But you shouldn't have closed hi-hats all the way through your song. That just, it's a waste. You know, you have such a cool instrument, and the hi-hat is my favorite instrument in the drum set. So it would be just such a shame to not use any other openness of your hi-hat, if you know what I mean. So maybe slightly open your hi-hat in the pre-chorus. and then you go back down in your chorus. And you could also introduce your chorus with a crash on the 1. And I'm not talking about like a huge bang, but just like a little, you know, sort of to sort of show, oh, we're in the chorus now. There we go. Another thing you could do to your chorus, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, is add a shaker or a tambourine in 16th in a sub 16 subdivision, because I think that really would give it more of a. I don't know. Tambourine just to me has this Simon Garfunkel style. I think it would really work well in this setting, and it would give it a little bit of a push to make that chorus a little bit bigger, by being. But it's still pretty subtle, you know. The tambourine, you can mix it really low in the mix, just to sort of give it really subtle, different subdivision. I think that would really help your chorus to stand out. Anyways, let's move on to the next song, which is Not Without a Fight. We have some really nice parts here, especially the drums and the bass. Dude, awesome. My hat's off to you. I really like your drum parts and your bass parts. It sounds really great. But all the other parts are great as well. But just your drums and bass. I mean, I can hear it's programmed, but it's nice, you know, and you don't hear a lot of really well-written drum parts by non-drummers. So, way to go on that. Yeah, your song has a nice drive, and your lyrical storytelling works. What can I say? Well, I can't say a couple of things. Here's a couple of suggestions. I have, first of all, let's talk about some backing vocals in your chorus, and I actually have your song open right here, and I'm going to sing along with it because I have an idea for your chorus. I would add some backing vocals in your chorus, and here's what I would do. Hold on, give me 1 second, and then I'll start your song and try to sing along.
I wish you got someone else to blame. You lost your appetite. Won't even take your bite. It looks like this could take all night.
There you go.
You'll never get it right. You'll never see the light. You won't give up without a fight. You said
Something like that. I think we'll just make it a little bit more interesting. If you can, hit that high note in chest voice. I'm not going to do that because then I know the microphone is going to distort. But that's the sort of melody that I had in my head. And sorry for messing it up the first time. There we go. Next is take out some of the lows of your voice, which is, I have a very resonant voice as well, as you maybe can tell. I know it's a shitty microphone, but I think you can tell that I have a very low voice. And I said that in an especially low voice, so you guys know that I have a low voice. I know the same, you have a very low voice as well. So for me, it's somewhere in the range of 300 to 500 hertz. There's always this peak in my frequency spectrum, which I always have to pull down a little bit. Your song is really like, sounds good, like frequency-wise, sounds alright, but your voice really stands out as the only one that has like so much body, like it has a lot of body. So maybe pull down 3 decibel around 300 to 500 hertz, somewhere around that. One thing I didn't understand about your lyrics was then your chorus, like, it's all sort of saying, well, you say it's tough, and I reckon it isn't tough enough. You say it's hard. Think of this as a thanks for trying card. But then in the chorus you say, you won't give up without a fight. I don't really understand that. Maybe I missed something, but let me see again. Yeah, I don't understand that. You'll never see the light, you'll never get it right if you don't try. That's basically your message. But then you say you won't give up without a fight. Shouldn't it be you give up without a fight? Because it kind of goes against the message of the lyrics as I understand them. So maybe just change the word won't to just. You just give up without a fight. By the way, Debbie E, take that. You know, you said I should focus more on the song's content. Well, there you go. All right, moving on. Fade out. Yeah, you're using a fade out to end your song, which is, I don't know about that one, dude. For this kind of song, I'm not sure about using a fade out. Fade outs usually work best on groove-based songs. So if you're writing a song like Blurred Lines or Get Lucky, then that's all right. And those are songs that do that. Fade outs are kind of out of, like, not a lot of people use fade outs anymore, but if they do, it's usually on groove based songs. But if you have like a a vocal line that's like straight center stage, with like something to say, then it's usually not a very good idea to use a fade out. So in your song, the focus is still too much on the vocals when you do that fade out. But you can change that by adding, for example, a solo guitar that's playing in the background, which gives it more of a feeling from, so it's going from the feeling of through composedness, if that is a word, to we're just having fun and everyone's just playing, we're just, it's just cool. And then it's more groove based, it's like, whatever, we're just doing whatever you want. And then it's like, party, and then you have a fade out. That would work better, I think. So maybe wait a little bit longer with your fade out, add another guitar, and to get into that feeling of we're just having fun. I don't know if that's clear. If you have questions about that, feel free to ask me again. But I hope it is. All right, moving on to the next song, which is from Johan from Sweden. Jambrains, how are you doing, man? This is already your third contribution, dude. Awesome. And you thought I wasn't going to review your song this week, but I am, because I have some little time, and I do want to review it. So here we go. First of all, your lyric to storytelling, again, is great. You understand what you're doing. You have a cool chorus. I like your solo. Great part writing. And your lyrics are nice. So on all those fronts, awesome, man. Here are a couple of my suggestions, though. First of all, sing your choruses. Oh yeah, this is a thing that I noticed in your first song that you sent me, where you were also singing. I also noticed it there. Sing your choruses groovier, and that's mostly referring to your timing, because you're very laid back when you sing, meaning you're behind the beat. You're sort of very sort of you have your own timing with your vocals, which is great, and I love laid back vocals. But for a chorus like this one, which is sort of has to be a little bit groovy. In your verses, it's awesome, but in your chorus, just be a little bit more on the beat. So if you in your verses, if you're a little bit looser as you are right now, then that's fine. That's great. But in your chorus, as I said, be on the beat. I love that moment after your first chorus when you have that line. What was it? Lift that weight from off my shoulders. Da da da. I forgot what you're singing there, but anyways. Yeah, anyways, after your first chorus, you switch to an electric setting, which is awesome, and I love that moment in your song. This is probably my favorite moment in your song. It's very dramatic, and you're doing it really well. And it's just so subtle how your electric guitars sort of sneak in. That's awesome, dude. I love that. But once we've switched, give me an extra 2 or 4 bars with that new instrumentation to help me get used to that new sound. Because right now you're burying this cool moment, because you're starting with your second verse immediately. And that's such a shame, because it's so awesome that you are switching to an entirely new instrumentation. So I thought that was kind of a shame, because I love that moment, and I think it would make it stronger if you if you show it a little bit more what you're doing there. If you're showcasing your new sound, your new instrumentation a little bit more. For your chorus, there was just one line that was bugging me a little bit, and so I really like your chorus. I think it works. Lift the weight from off my shoulders, roll away this big old stone. Let me sleep a dreamless sleep tonight. But then, let me be, leave me alone. It seems like you're just sort of, it's too many syllables. Maybe it's not too many syllables, but it's 2 lines instead of 1, and it just sort of seems like pressed in there. There's just too much meaning in one little line. So maybe how about you change it to let the thoughts leave me alone. I think that would simplify it, and because right now it seems like very full. There's too much happening there for my taste. I'm sure everyone else has a different perception of this again, but for my taste, I would make this simpler and change "let me be, leave me alone" to "let the thoughts leave me alone." Personally, I could do without the fiddle until the very last chorus. It's a nice and cool sound that you don't hear a lot in these kind of songs, so that's good. But you're starting with it pretty early, so I don't know. Just hold it back a little bit longer. Don't show your cool stuff right away. Wait a little bit. Let them come to you, and then you give them the good stuff. At 3 minutes 18, I wrote down. Oh yes, I remember this. This is in your bridge, I think. 3 minutes 18. You're using sort of in a low energy kind of section, and there's a piano playing, and the piano's playing a minor third over a major chord. And in this style, I would really say that's wrong, like just wrong. So I would really change that. Like that's okay if you're Ihor and you know what you're doing and you're playing jazz, then that's all right. You know, then it's a sharp 9, and then everything's like, oh, that's okay, of course. Then it's just like the sort of Hendrix chord, you know. But in this kind of style, I would personally say, because it's also not very bluesy, I would personally say that's wrong, and I would really change that note in the piano to a major third. Then at the end you have this double strike me deaf and strike me blind part. So where you have two crashes, and then this music sort of stops, and then it starts again, and then it stops again, and then it starts again. I personally didn't really like that. I would say keep the groove. Like for the other parts in the song, it's fine, but having that same bit twice, exactly the same, just kind of, I don't know, kind of destroys the feel for me. So I would personally say keep the groove going the first time when you do that, and then the second way you have that crash, and then it's sort of, the song sort of stops, if you catch my drift. That's really all my feedback that I have for this week. Now, on to the things that I was talking about in the very beginning, which is some news. And I've already talked about this just a tiny little bit on my channel on Facebook. I'm working currently on a program called Drum Writing for Non-Drummers. And I want this program, and it's going to be a video program, I want this program to be the best drum writing program for songwriters in the world, and I think it will be. Because I finished my first draft. It's 30 pages long, and there's stuff in there that I've never seen anywhere else, ever. And so far, the only way to learn the stuff that I'm going to show you in this workshop was to actually learn how to play the drums. And I'm going to teach you basically everything in this workshop. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. But I do want to make sure, as I said, that it's the best freaking workshop in the fucking world. So I have created a survey for you guys on my Facebook page, facebook.com/holisticsongwriting. And just scroll down a little bit until you see the post that is has like a yellow drum set on it, and it says become a part of my new product. And just click on that. It's a little survey. I'm just basically asking you one question, that is, what would you like to see in a workshop like this? Like, what do you want to learn? What must be in this workshop? Because I really don't want to leave anything out. Because if 10 people say we need to know about whatever blast beats or something like that, you know, then I will put that in. So I have about a dozen people who have answered to that survey right now, but I'd rather have it somewhere in the 3 dozens, just to make sure, or even higher, just to make sure that I'm sort of getting all of your suggestions, and everything is in there that needs to be in there. So I really would appreciate if you could take 1 minute, and really, if it doesn't really take longer than 1 minute, it would take 1 minute to fill out that survey. That would be awesome. And again, tell me what you think of this, of your feedback, and if you disagree, or if you do agree, and if you're going to change it, or if you have new ideas, or if you have questions to me. Let me know all that stuff. Doesn't matter if you comment on YouTube or on Facebook. You can also do both. That's awesome, because then other people can see it no matter where they are. And yeah. One more thing. Someone just started last week to write a review for me on Holistic Songwriting, or for Holistic Songwriting, on the Facebook page. If you are on the Holistic Songwriting page, on the left there's the thing where you can click 1 of 5 stars, and where you can give a rating for Holistic Songwriting. And I would highly appreciate it if you guys could write me some nice reviews. That would be awesome. That's it from me. Take care. I hope to see you next week again. And stay gefährlich. Take care, guys.